Cecil Hurt, sports editor, columnist for the Tuscaloosa News. I'm not trying to, send some sort of subliminal messages today with the playlist, Cecil. The Lemonheads, a lemon of a tight performance last night for Alabama. But what does this mean for Alabama basketball with what's left of this season?
Well, it's a bad loss. They were on the outer rim of the bubble anyway, but you can't survive. Not just this loss, but they've had 4 home losses in February and March on their home floor against teams they were favored by 3 to 12 points. Lost all 4 of them. So didn't lose every. They beat South Carolina at home. They beat LSU at home. Probably better teams than the ones that they lost to. But you can't drop 4 home games down the stretch and expect to be involved in anything.
So Nate Oates, post-game, you were there. In terms of frustration level, where was he at last night compared to maybe some other times during the season?
Yeah, he was pretty frustrated. Probably not the most, but I think early in the season when he was getting to know his team and so forth. I think there were some times when he was frustrated. They didn't play great their first 2 games down in the Bahamas, but it's disappointing. There are some legitimate injury issues, but now Vanderbilt's got legitimate injury issues too. You didn't see Aaron Naismith out there for Vanderbilt either, so you have to work around those things. It hurt that Petty couldn't play, that Herb's not 100%. Vanderbilt went small. That created some matchup problems. Alabama just doesn't have enough guys who can guard on the perimeter. But when a team does something like that and creates matchup problems for you, it should create matchup problems for them on the other end. And I'm not beating on Alex Reese. Alex is probably not 100% health-wise right now. But your power forward, your forward, you can call him a stretch 4 or Euro 4 or whatever. He goes 1 for 9, and all 9 of the shots that he takes are 3-pointers. And you're talking about how on the other end, well, he has a tough time guarding a small, quick guy. Probably does. But that small, quick guy's got to guard him on the other end. Why is he not he gets 3 rebounds? Why is he not getting 6, 8 offensive rebounds or shooting 5-footers or taking it, posting up and taking a post shot? That's just one example of the things that you got to do. You can't just say, well, man, it was a bad matchup because Vanderbilt was small. Well, it was just bad matchup on one end. It ought to be a bad matchup on the other end, too.
Talk about Kyra Lewis, Cecil, and I guess kind of the shame in all of this is that Kyra should be a slam dunk first-team All-SEC guy, shouldn't he? But does all this sort of chip away at his candidacy for some of those things? I know it's very much secondary to the team goals. I get that.
Yeah.
The point being, he was Kyra again last night.
Yeah, he averaged, scored 30 points and playing great. Your team's success does have something to do with that, and that'll. You say the same thing about Saban Lee, who had a tremendous game, scored 38 points, but he's going to have a tough time making any teams because he plays for Vanderbilt. Probably Mason Jones, although Mason Jones for some reason gets more love than Kyra does or Saban Lee does. And Mason Jones is a good player. That's not what I'm saying, but it may affect him some. In terms of Player of the Year and so forth, people are going to look at. They're going to look at Kentucky. They're going to look at LSU. They're going to look at Auburn, and those are the teams that have been successful. And that's just the nature of those kind of awards.
I guess a byproduct of Kyra's great play here, especially over the last, month and a half or so, are his NBA draft prospects.
Right.
We're kind of at the mercy of mocks at this point in the discussion, but you can get a pretty good feel for how a guy sort of stacks up in the eyes of NBA clubs, barring an NIT performance or an NIT home game, potentially in the upcoming postseason. What do you think the chances are that Kyra Lewis has possibly played his last home game at Coleman Coliseum.
It's that he's played his last home game. It's more than 50%. It's where he sits in the mocks right now. He would probably need to go. The good thing about college basketball is he gets to the end of the season. He can go through the evaluation process. He can enter his name, go work out for teams. Let guys take a look, get a realistic, honest, face-to-face appraisal, and then make a decision. And that decision may be to go, and it may be to come back. But he'll have a lot more information. Unlike football guys who finish, particularly if they play in a bowl game, and then 10 days later they got to make a decision that they can't change. So the basketball, whatever works out in basketball, and I think Kyra will probably go pro, but that's just my opinion. But they get a much more honest evaluation than football guys do, or at
you
least
think they're
much more a much better process. Let me put it that way. I don't want to say football guys don't get honest evaluations, because they do, but teams have a chance to work them out, look at them, and players can enter in without that being the final word and no chance of return.
Yeah, you think there are a couple of guys following that combine last week that might not mind being able to go back to college, play a little more football if they could?
Sure. If they're underclassmen, yeah, absolutely. I don't know that any of the Alabama guys necessarily. I thought all the Alabama underclassmen did, more or less did pretty well. But there are plenty of guys out there who look around and they, you're a linebacker and you took an early exit, you're done, and that's it. Isaiah Simmons goes out there and you're saying, maybe I didn't want to be in the draft class with this guy. Maybe I should have been in the next draft class. I would say that there's probably, some wide receiver, whether it's Laviska Shenault or whoever it is going to go in the second round, who would have gone in the first round next year. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is.
So for this Alabama basketball team with one regular season game to go, what's the motivation? What's the motivation for this team headed to Columbia, Missouri this weekend, Cecil?
Well, they should want to play better. And I will say this, they've had bad, they played bad against Texas A&M and came back and gave a pretty good effort against South Carolina. They're not, people throw words around. They're not quitters. They're not trying. So I think they'll give an effort against Missouri and see how it works out. And that's all Nate Oates is looking for.
Is this pretty much an 8-9 situation?
You can do some things in the tournament. Who knows? So it's not that these are kids without heart or without character or aren't trying. They're just not, getting the job done. Sometimes they haven't been tough enough. But they've had plenty of performances where they could go out and give another good performance. So, South Carolina, Ole Miss, they could do that. So it's not a situation where I think they, lost to Vanderbilt, going to chuck it. Now, maybe it is. That'll tell you something about, if you're Nate Oates, that tells you something about what you got to do for next year. Mm-hmm. But I think that they'll play hard.
Just when we thought we had this league figured out in relation mostly to Kentucky, we talked about this on Monday. Both very high on Kentucky Monday and really still high on Kentucky about halfway to 2/3 through that game against Tennessee last night at Rupp. And then the Vols come back from 17 down.
Yeah,
and,
first of all, credit to Tennessee. Second of all, I'm still high on Kentucky. They're still a good team, but they're not a great three-point shooting team. And they can miss, and they can struggle offensively. So the player of the month in February for the SEC is probably John Fulkerson.
27 last night. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, who would ever have thought that? But that's not giving up. That's going out, giving an effort, playing hard. And credit to Rick Barnes for putting the pieces together. Good for him.
What is Alabama looking at most realistically when we talk about the SEC tournament? Is it pretty much locked in to perhaps that 8-9 game, or is there still some wiggle room?
We'll see tonight. They need either Arkansas or Missouri to lose. My guess would be Texas A&M in an 8-9.
And that puts you in line for a quarterfinal matchup, I guess, as you survive with Kentucky.
If you're to win, you get to see Kentucky. So, that's the chances you take.
I guess if you're an Alabama fan right now.
Same situation the women are in, but the women have an entirely different momentum going into their tournament.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to hit on. If you're an Alabama fan right now and you've got big dance fever, I think it sort of hinges more with the ladies at 8-8 in the league going into that big SEC tournament matchup tomorrow morning over in Greenville against the Georgia Bulldogs.
11 a.m. against Georgia. That's a big game.
Yeah,
I think Alabama wins that game and they'll get in. There's not the huge volumes of information available with women's bracketology that there is with men's, or at least there are not nearly as many bracketologists. But their resumes, Alabama's resume is not bad. It's not bad. If you win that one, you're at worst a 500 team in the league. I think you win that one, and South Carolina, people say, oh, well, what about, then they got to play South Carolina. I don't think South Carolina hurts you, regardless of what happens. They could help you. If you could find a way to beat the best team in the country 90 minutes from their campus, that would sure help you, but I don't think it hurts you to play South Carolina if you get past Georgia. So it's a big game tomorrow.
Those two late road wins over Mississippi State and Texas A&M, but credit Christy Curry's team as well, because we've seen Alabama women's basketball win games like that, but then not be able to sort of put together another 2 or 3 to go along with it. And in winning 4 straight, that's absolutely been the case for the Alabama ladies here down the stretch. Talking with Cecil Hurt of the
also got those kind of home wins that you need to get, that the men needed to get. Beat Missouri, beat Florida.
Yeah.
And that counts too.
Yep. And like I said, we've seen Alabama women's basketball record some big wins. I mean, there was a stretch 4 or 5 years where Alabama took out the Lady Vols of Tennessee, the once mighty Lady Vols of Tennessee, but then would return home and drop a game to, a team in the bottom half of the league or so. And
Ole Miss or somebody,
Yeah, managed to avoid that this time around. Talking with Cecil Hurt of the Tuscaloosa News and TideSports.com here on a Wednesday edition of Southern Fried Sports presented by Peterbrook Chocolatier. Cecil, I know you and I together, we put in our tandem strength coach resume, our team resume, but we were overlooked by Nick Saban for David Ballou and Matt Ray. Your thoughts on those hires becoming official?
I think it's great. It does sound that sounds like two guys that would just the name down there in Jacksonville, that Florida Tag Team Championship on the line.
Yeah.
Against Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2 versus David Ballou and Dr. Matt Ray.
It could be like a couple's assistant show late night on some Sirius channel or something, Yeah,
and it's got that you got the power guy and you got the speed guy. The tag team dynamic. But setting that aside, I think that's the direction that NFL teams have gone, and I think that's the direction Nick Saban wanted to go all along. And that's not a criticism of Scott Cochran, but it's just I think he wanted to take advantage of what they're going to have facilities-wise, wanted a different approach to not just as we've talked about, not just putting as many plates as you can on the bar and going in there and squat, but a lot of different kinesiological metrics. And so I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything about every measurable on Indiana's roster, but I think Indiana's gotten better during the time that those guys have been up there. So if they can make Alabama better, then and that's what Nick Saban thinks, then more power to them.
We're a week and a half away, Cecil, from the start of spring football practice at the University of Alabama. Is there an area of this team, because of the large, ultra large, bigger than life large shadow that the quarterback position at UA casts, is there an area of this team maybe to you that isn't being talked about as much that maybe needs to be?
Well, all the areas. I mean, I think people feel like the running back situation is good or better than good. The receivers will still be good. You still got Waddle. You still got Devontae. Offensive line should be fine, even with Jedrick Wills going in the first round. You've got Leatherwood. You've got Dickerson. You've got Deontay Brown. So I think offensively people feel pretty good. Defensively, I think people should probably talk more about the front guys, and that's an area, front seven guys. And again, as important as quarterback is, Dylan Moses, to stretch an analogy a little bit, but not too far, he's the quarterback, was the quarterback of the defense last year and couldn't play, and will be the quarterback of the defense this year. So I think that he's not going to do a lot this spring. But I think seeing how that group develops, they've got new coaching up there on the defensive front with Freddie Roach. I think that's an intriguing area.
Yeah, and you're right. Even if Dylan Moses doesn't do a lot, which you wouldn't expect that he would, just his presence out there with those guys has got to help. It's got to help Pete Golding. He and
Josh McMillan.
Yeah, both those guys.
That's people talked about Terrell's comments and getting plays in and so forth, and you can take those how you want. But part of it is if you're relaying those plays to two veteran, intelligent guys like Moses and McMillan, that's different than having two true freshmen out there. And Shane Lee and KO hadn't played very much. Christian and those guys, it was all new to them.
Yeah.
So that should help the process too. So,
and they're still trying to figure out what they have to do, and now you're asking them to communicate to everybody else what they need to do. I mean, the sort of blowback from all that this week, it was just pretty much no kidding to me, right? I mean, they struggled with communication on defense, and as much as any reason, the one you just talked about, you had, two true freshmen at the inside linebacker spots, including your every down inside linebacker. It absolutely should have been. You had Xavier McKinney trying to make calls for everybody from the secondary. That's tough.
Right.
That's you are certainly going to have issues in years in which that is the case. Well, Cecil, as always, we appreciate the time, my friend.
All right. Enjoy it. Good luck with our
Rainbow Wahine.
And I know it'll go well for them.